Hey there, folks. How you doing today? Hope you're having an awesome day. Me, I'm having a pretty good day because I got a package in the mail. That came from our good friend Mike down at Rasputin's Castle. So you may have saw yesterday that Mike did a video on a Groman belt knife that I sent to him. And he said we did a little bit of a trade. Mike was selling himself a little bit short. Full story is Mike said he was going to send me some knives. And there was no trade about it. He just wanted to send me some knives. So time passed, things developed, and just so happens around the time he was getting ready to send things, I was heading down to the Groman knife plant. So I saw an opportunity. So I said, Mike, is there anything there you'd like? And that's when he said to me he's always wanted a Groman belt knife. So off I went down there. Once I got to the shop, I did a little video chat with him, let him have a look around the shop a bit. And then we picked out the knife he wanted. So that was an opportunity for me to repay that kindness. So it ended up being like a trade, but I just want to point out that originally this was just a gesture of kindness on Mike's part. So, and I was just real happy I could find something to send him back to acknowledge that kindness and give him something that he wanted. So anyway, what did he send me? Well, he sent me two knives. One I knew he was sending, and one was a bit of a surprise. And so the surprise was this fella here, and that is a cold steel range boss. Blade length 4 inches, overall length 9 1/4 inches, steel 4116 stainless, weight is 3.4 ounces, blade thickness 3.5 millimeters, handle is 5 1/4 inch Zyx. And it has the cold steel triad lock. Now we're just going to take a quick peek at this one. I'll do a full video on it in the future. But if you want a closer look at it right now, hop over to HT's EDC and see Harold, because he actually dropped a video on this knife today. So go check that out. Comes with some bubble wrap. And here it is. So it's basically a folding hunter. Very thin. Nice mid-lock lockup. Great looking knife. And one thing I noticed off the bat, that pocket clip, that has got to be the least offensive pocket clip I've ever seen on a knife. I don't even feel it. So we won't jump into that, but we'll do a future video where we'll probably even compare it with the cold steel Ranch Boss 2. So you've got the Ranch Boss and you've got the Range Boss 2. So both your folding hunter designs. So we're going to do a video in comparison on those in the future. But for now, if you want a closer look at this knife, jump over to Harold's channel and have a look, because he did a nice review on it today. We also got from Mike, before I forget, some channel stickers. Bunch more of his channel stickers. And he sent a Spartan Blades USA, DLT Trading, an American flag, Blade HQ, very cool looking Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and a Rosecraft Blades. And on top of that, he sent a very nice braided paracord lanyard with a little kind of robot-y skull on it. It looks like it might have been from an 8 or 3/8 socket, maybe. Very cool. And then he sent some of his own custom beads, metal beads that he makes. And he has a video showing how he makes those, so go check that out. But here's the main course. This is an Ontario Knife Company Rat 5. Now, this is an older Rat 5. This is not a version you can buy today. They have a version they sell today that comes with a very different sheath. We'll throw a picture up here. But I tell you right off the bat, this has to be the nicest nylon sheath I've ever seen. I'm not a big fan of nylon sheaths. I find they just don't last, and when you're in the woods, a lot of times they can be very noisy as brush rubs on them, but this one is very nice. So we'll pop the knife out and have a quick look at that. Now, I'm not going to do a full breakdown on this. This is just a quick look because I got plans for this knife and we'll video some of those plans, but here's your sheath. So you've got two straps securing the knife around the handle, and these are adjustable. So they just Velcro apart, and then you can adjust the length to tighten or loosen how secure they are on the handle. It's got another adjustable big healthy pouch on the front and Velcro so you can adjust how high the flap is. Very good for putting a sharpening steel, or you could even put a little scout knife in there, or a small fixed blade, or some tinder. You've got a flap at the bottom with two holes for a leg lanyard, and a whole lot of Mall-equip strapping options on the back. And one thing I particularly like is they've sewn a flap over the edges, because nylon will often fray very easily on the edges, so they've completely covered that all the way around the edges. So you can't get this sheath anymore, unfortunately, but so I'm happy to have an older one. And it's an ambidextrous sheath, so the knife will slide in this way, or if you're left-handed, you can slide it in this way. Now, one downside to that is you don't have a molded plastic insert, so even when secure, the knife will rattle a bit. Less noticeable in the tip-down carry, but in the tip-up carry, you can hear it quite a bit more. But we can come up with a fix for that. Before I forget, Mike also dropped in a nice handwritten note, so that's an awesome thing in this community. I've got so many of these notes now, it's really cool. It's kind of like the old days of sending letters. It's kind of neat. Alrighty, on to the knife. So the Ontario Knife Company, I think, started, if I'm not mistaken, around the late 1800s, maybe 1889. They produced some significant military knives. They had the M7 bayonet and the pilot survival knife. Well, in 2002, they did a collab with the Randall's Adventure and Training Group, and that was an outdoor training survival kind of group. And that group later developed into ESEE knives. So this was a collab design that they came up with. And this one is the RAT 5, so Randall Adventure Training, 5 for the 5-inch blade, and OD, and I believe that's for the powder coating in OD green. And you see there the Ontario Knife Company USA. So this is a hoss of a knife. You've got a 5-inch long blade. Your cutting edge is about 3.38 inches. Very nice grind on that. Your blade height is about 1.5 inches. Your blade thickness is about 0.19 inches, so I might as well say 0.2 inches. And you've got the powder coat. So as thin as it might be, that's going to contribute to some of that blade width. The steel is 1095 HC carbon steel. It has a flat grind, a long clip point, and you have this baked on OD green powder coat, and it's textured. Your handle length is about 5 inches. You got about a 1/2 inch extended tang on the back. Scales are green micarta. And the weight of this sucker, I weighed it, is 11.2 ounces. It's a very hand-filling knife. The scales are contoured. They're very thick. And you've got a nice worked-in finger choil or finger guard here. You've got torque screws holding it together, so you can easily remove the scales should you want to modify them, change them, or just check underneath the knife for rust and whatnot. For me, I have medium-sized hands, so it's a little bit much for me. When I grip it, that belly right there, I feel that. That lands right in the crease here in my hands. So it makes it a little uncomfortable. So for me, using this one as it sits would be, my hand would tire and get sore after a while. But being that it's micarta, I can make some modifications to that. So that's one thing I'll be doing. I'm going to taper this down through here, probably a little bit in the spine. Feels really good in this grip, an extended grip, but to grab onto it, I find it uncomfortable. So that's one modification we're going to do. We're going to taper these down. You get some jimping on the top, which is a little far forward for me. It's nice, comfortable jimping, does the job. I wish they had extended it back to about here. Because when I just take a standard grip on the knife, I'm just barely catching the very edge of that jimping. Fellow with a larger hand, that would probably land in a very good spot. The powder coating is textured, and that can be good and bad. This is a carbon steel knife, so a powder coating on it is good because that's going to protect it from corrosion. The texturing, think of sandpaper. So when when this knife is passing through certain surfaces, there could be a little bit of drag. And cleaning wise, if you get a lot of pine resin, sap, things like that in your knife, it's going to be a little bit harder to clean that stuff up. WD-40 works great though. Anything sticky like pine resin, WD-40, very good at taking that off. It has a squared spine, but with the powder coating, it's not going to be very good for scraping, and you're likely not going to strike a ferro rod with it. But that's easy enough, and that's one modification I will make, and I will probably, between the jimping and where the clip starts, I'm just going to touch that up on the belt sander and take that down to bare metal. And that should allow it to scrape and strike a ferro rod. Another option here is to take some of that coating out of the finger choil, and that will also, you could strike your ferro rod there. Wouldn't be so great for scraping, but be a good spot to strike a ferro rod. It does have a very nice finger choil right there, and sharpening choil. If you're going to use it, be careful because the blade edge does come right back into the choil. If you had some gloves on, probably would be a wise idea if you wanted to use that. But it gives a good bit of sharpening room, and the plunge grind, you've got maybe a couple eighths of an inch there. So you'll get a lot of sharpening out of this. And you have a lanyard hole back here in the tang, and a little impact surface there for breaking glass or cracking walnuts or cracking other things. So look for this one in a future video after I do some modifications. My plan is to do a 3-part video. I'll just do a basic rundown on the knife as it sits. Then I'm going to do some modifications. Like I say, remove some of that coating so that you can have a scraping surface. I'm going to contour the handles. And of course, we're going to put a lanyard on it. And then once that's done, we'll go ahead and do some testing with it. I know if I do some testing with it right now, it's just the handle's not going to work for me as it is. It'll just tire my hand. But once I get that all cleaned up, contoured the way I want it, then we'll do some testing and really see what I think about it. Now, if you remember when I said earlier that this was a collab with Randall Adventure Training, and they later became Essie. Well, very, very similar to your SE5. Handle design, very similar. I think the SE might have it's not a flat grind, I think it might be a saber grind. And each, for a camp knife or a bushcraft knife, each has their advantages. This one would likely be much more slicey, as long as that textured powder coat doesn't cause any issues. But may not be quite as good for batoning or feather sticking. We'll find out. Now, that's not all Mike sent. So he sent me this knife and this knife to keep. Those were his gifts to me. He also sent, we'll just slip this to the side, 14 other knives from his personal collection for me to review. Each one individually bagged with a little note saying what each one is. And there are some very nice knives in here. And we're not going to look at them now, but you'll get to see them all in future videos. So just a little sneak peek there. Some of the different knives he sent. So these are all from his personal collection. And I want to tell you, when he sent this, I was nervous. I knew they were all traditional, so customs wouldn't have an issue with them, but just to have them in the mail. And the mail's been a little iffy up here in the last few months, and we're possibly heading into another postal worker strike. And I've been hearing from some of the fellas down south that there's been some issues with the mail there. So I was quite nervous about these coming in the mail. And they sat in Montreal at customs for quite a few days. So I was very relieved to get these. I think Mike was relieved too. So, but yeah, just a whole bunch of knives here that we'll take a look at. And he was very kind to put the notes on them. So that gives me a great foundation to do some research. So look for these in the future. I think there's some pretty sweet pieces in here. So that's it for this one, folks. I just want to throw a big thank you out to Mike down at Rasputin's Castle. Mike and I chat a lot. We video chat. We share information. More him sharing information with me than me with him. But I keep telling him he's got to write that knife book one of these days. But thank you very much. You've become a good friend. And I really appreciate talking with you and you sharing your knowledge and just the general chit chats we have. So look forward to a more detailed review on this one and this one in the future. And I'm very anxious to get out and start doing some modifications with this guy and just kind of tuning it into my preference. So that'll be it, folks. You all have an awesome day. It's the weekend. If the weather's good where you are, get outside, grab some friends, go for a walk in the woods, watch nature come back to life. It's just a great, peaceful place to be. And if you do, take a knife with you. It might just come in handy. You all take care.